Daddy gets lost. Daddy gets lost. Daddy gets lost. Munch.
Hello and welcome to Daddy Eats Last, where we discuss the challenges of being a man in modern society and whatever the hell that even means. I'm Kane, and with Matty on the beers in lockdown and Ryan swanning around in Cambridge, I'm flying solo. So tonight, I'm going to talk about resilience. Well, to me, resilience, guts, grit, these words are all in a similar wheelhouse with interwoven meanings. Now, to me, each represent a form of perseverance and passion to achieve something, maybe a long-term goal, maybe something different. Now, we all have times where we seem to be lacking in these characteristics. Like we can all easily give up. We can shy away from challenge. We can be easily distracted. I can definitely be easily distracted, that's for sure. We can be disheartened when things go wrong, and sometimes we have little sense of purpose or in fact, what our goals are. Now, grit or guts or resilience means you can make it through these tough situations, ideally with a smile on your face. You have the confidence and perseverance to pick yourself up when you're down. I feel like people with guts or grit or determination can basically persevere and get through anything. But if you ask most people who show these traits what makes them, they'll probably just say something pretty glib like, "Oh, it's just life, mate." Well, that is pretty reductive. What they actually mean by this is that the experience that we all encounter in life break us down and allow us the opportunity to build ourselves back up again, stronger than what we were before. Because it's through failure that we learn our greatest lessons, and those lessons often are what it takes for us to achieve our goals. I mean, I've failed a lot at a lot of different stuff in life. I failed at work multiple times. I never thought I could fit in. I've failed at business multiple times. I've had many businesses fail, which I've had a crack at. I failed in relationships, not that many times, but there was definitely at least one big fat fail in there. I failed at being a dad. I mean, today I call my kid a peanut because he was going nuts after waking up at 5:30 or earlier. He didn't really like that. So I think I failed at being a dad today in regard to that. But equally, I've also tried my best to dust myself off and look at the next day as a new day and a new opportunity. Sometimes that's been really hard, and the situation haunts your every waking minute until you can go to sleep again or even just numb the problem or whatever the failure is. But even that part gets easier eventually. Now, I do suggest that you try not to fail too much or too hard along the way, as some failures can set you back a long, long way. But resilience is our ability to cope with these unexpected circumstances and can be thought of an emotional fitness. If we're resilient, we're then able to cope better with life's ups and life's downs. Unfortunately, we can't build resilience on success alone. You can't build resilience from winning all the time. So facing failure is what builds up grit and guts. And guts, grit, and determination are traits that, like everything in life, need to be worked on to grow and develop. It takes failure for us to build our inner strength and actually to work out how to deal with failure. A life of unbroken success doesn't test us. If we're untested, then we are really unprepared for what might eventually come. So here are five strategies resilient people use to bounce back after failure. Number one, practice gratitude. Resilient people recognize that no matter how bad the circumstances are, their situation could always be worse. I practice this one. I always think my situation could be much worse. I've been in worse situations than COVID pandemics personally. Pandemic's annoying, and because a lot of people, but personally, it hasn't affected me as much as other things in my life. So it always pays to keep the context of what's going on. You don't allow yourself to exaggerate how terrible things are, and you don't run around predicting how much worse things are going to get either. Instead, you just view the failure with an accurate perspective, just a perspective of this is what is actually happening. Don't attach things to it. And rather than becoming upset with the first attempt when it doesn't work, resilient people choose to be grateful they actually had the opportunity to try. They remind themselves that many of today's setbacks won't matter tomorrow. Probably won't matter tomorrow. They definitely won't matter next year. They certainly won't matter in 5 or 10 years' time. And their willingness to look for the silver lining keeps their mood positive as they continue to behave productively, even when things don't work out the way they had hoped. That's practicing gratitude. The second one is they look for lessons they can learn. Rather than to make excuses for their failures, resilient people try to learn from each mistake. They identify skills, ideas, and life lessons that can be learned from each failed opportunity. They view failure as evidence that they're stretching themselves to the limits. They're trying something a bit new, something a bit different, something which moves them out of their comfort zone. They know that if they don't ever fall down, they're likely not actually trying hard enough. If you don't fail at something, you're probably not trying. I'll get to that a little bit later in regards to how it affects kids. Each stumble actually provides proof that they're pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone, which is an essential component to self-growth. Third one, they respect their vulnerabilities. Resilient people aren't afraid to admit they have weaknesses. Whether an effective leader acknowledges problems within an organisation or an individual recognises areas in need of personal growth, resilient people use failure as an opportunity to spot their weaknesses and work on them. So rather than dispute their shortcomings or hide their mistakes, resilient people are authentic, and authentic is another buzzword out there I don't really like, but they're just true to themselves in this sort of instance. Their humble, sort of self-aware approach assists them in developing strategies to become better and to cope with failure. So they respect their vulnerabilities. They also acknowledge their strengths, which is the fourth one. Resilient people use failure as an opportunity to help them recognize their positive attributes, whether that means recalling skills they've used during tough times in the past or acknowledging the skills that have helped them get to where they are today. They know their strengths. When resilient people acknowledge their capabilities, they do so without arrogance. It's not like I'm so good, look at me. It is just understanding that you have some strengths which you can use, you can have in your toolkit. They don't need to brag to others about their characteristics or achievements. Instead, they're simply able to acknowledge that what they do well so they can use their strengths to their own advantage and to help people around them. The fifth one is they kind of create a plan. Because instead of viewing failure as the end, resilient people think of it as only the beginning. When their attempt to complete a project or task doesn't give them the results they want, they pause, they stop. They stop to consider how to approach the issues differently next time. A resilient person's self-worth isn't dependent upon achievement. Resilient people are able to feel good about themselves when they aren't at their best. I'll repeat that again. Resilient people are able to feel good about themselves even when they aren't at the best or when they aren't the best. Their confidence allows them to face repeated failure with tenacity. Now, everyone has the ability to develop increased resilience. Everyone. It's all about the choices we make and the desire to actually improve in this area. With hard work, we can all learn to use setbacks as opportunities to become better. Now, when it comes to children, managing failure and building resilience is even more important. It's one of the most important skills that you can teach a kid, in my humble opinion. Now, parents tend to see their mission as helping their kids to succeed. But really, parents need to focus on helping their children learn how to fail, because we all fail in life. And kids are no different. They're going to fail a lot more as they learn lots of different stuff and try many, many different things. In fact, not learning to tolerate failure leaves kids vulnerable to anxiety. It leads to meltdowns when the inevitable failure does occur, whether that happens in kinder or much, much later when your kid grows up and it happens in the workplace or out in real life. Most importantly, not being able to deal with failure may mean that kids give up trying or trying new things. And that's the worst thing that can happen when you're a kid, or when your kid stops trying things or stop trying new things, or they don't have a crack at things. Like, having a go at new things is probably one of the best things you can do in life. And you don't want your kid to sort of step away from doing that. Now, perseverance and resilience in the face of challenges is what contributes to a better and happier life. Unfortunately, as the world puts increased pressure on kids to be winners and parents feel compelled to enable them in every possible way, we're actually seeing more and more kids who become distraught over even the smallest misstep or the smallest mistake. So how do parents teach kids to fail? Well, the first thing is you just need to show empathy. Empathise with your child. See that they're in distress. Don't just say, it's okay, you'll do better next time. Don't brush off a child's feelings of frustration and disappointment. Instead, parents need to change their language. I can see you're really disappointed. I know you really want to do better then. So that's the first one, show empathy. Second one is make yourself a model, because you can actually explain that failure is a part of life and happens to everyone, even you as the adult that your kid looks up to. You could share examples of failures you've had. Parents can model how to handle their own disappointments, such as losing out a promotion at work or a business failing or something like that. Because kids aren't necessarily exposed to the reality of life, including mistakes, missteps, and even failures. It probably wasn't until my dad almost cut his hand off when I was 13 or 14 that I realised how sort of on a knife edge our finances were as a family back then. So until you go through a challenge, sometimes it's difficult for children to understand. Because as much as everyone likes things to go according to plan, it's important to teach children that it is also okay when they don't. Because you have to make it a teachable moment. That's the third one. A child's failure is a chance for parents to teach acceptance and problem-solving skills. You and your kid can try to come up with what they could have done or could do next time for a better chance at success. For instance, could they have studied differently or talked to the teacher about any problems they were having before they had that test at school? Step back and allow kids to fail, and this is probably the most important one. It can be very tough to watch your kid fall down, but they can only learn how to handle disappointment through trial and error. So stop hovering. Stop being a helicopter. Hovering robs your child of the very experiences that require problem solving and set them on the path to resilience and the confidence to take on new challenges. That's all for tonight. I'll finish with an excerpt from Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena, which is really appropriate when we're talking about resilience. The credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. Now that applies to people of all ages. Catch you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.